What is up, guys, and welcome back for another episode, chapter and vlog of the book of John. Today we're picking it back up with chapter 13 with a lot of ground to cover. It's good stuff. You already know that. This is chapter 13. Well, chapter 13 opens up with a powerful example from Jesus on being a servant to others. So, you're wondering what is, it's not snowing, it's cotton. Lots of cotton tree right there. So ultimately the example that we are to follow is that of Jesus. One thing about Jesus is he won't ask you to do something that he never had to go through. See, the Bible even reminds us that he was tempted and tried in everything like all of us. Well, the example that Jesus gives here is that he sits down and washes his disciples' feet. Now this seems like a strange practice to us today, but in this day everyone wore sandals and their feet were constantly covered in dirt and grime. Pretty gross. So washing someone's feet was not only gross to do, but it was very humbling and an act of servanthood. Well, Jesus didn't just wash his own feet or even just one or two disciples, washed all 12 of them. Now there's a bit of a funny exchange over this by Peter and Jesus, so look at verses 7 through 15. Jesus answered and said to him, "What I am doing you do not understand now, but you will know after this." Peter said to him, "You shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered him, "If I do not wash you, you have no part with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." Jesus said to him, "He who is bathed needs only to wash his feet, but is completely clean, and you are clean, but not all of you." For he knew who would betray him, therefore he said, "You are not all clean." So when he had washed their feet, taken his garments, and sat down again, he said to them, "Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you say, well, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you." Now some people take this literally and still practice the act of washing each other's feet in church service. Now I get this, but I don't believe that Jesus was trying to institute a literal practice here. The thing Jesus is trying to show is that he wants his followers to understand the meaning of true servanthood. See, it's very natural to want to be first and to be willing to step over others to get what you want. But in the kingdom of God, Jesus shows that the first will be last and the last first. To be the greatest of all, you must first be a servant. Now, it seems almost backwards, but it's the way that God's kingdom works. It puts other people before yourself and is an attitude of the heart. Now, the next thing in this chapter that we read about is Jesus identifying Judas as his betrayer. Now, it says that Jesus and his disciples are having a meal eating when suddenly Jesus is troubled in his spirit and says in verse 21, "One of you will betray me." Now, of course, this is pretty upsetting to all of the disciples as they're all sitting there eating, and they all start asking, well, who is it? And Jesus actually singles out Judas directly. Now, look at this in verses 26 through 30. Jesus answered, "It is he to whom I shall give a piece of bread when I have dipped it." And having dipped the bread, he gave it to Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon. Now, after the piece of bread, Satan entered him. Then Jesus said to him, "What you do quickly." But no one at the table knew for what reason he said this to him, for some thought because Judas had the money box that Jesus had said to him, "Buy those things we need for the feast," or that he should go give something to the poor. Having received the piece of bread, he then went out immediately, and it was night. From this point on, Judas was directly underneath Satan's influence. Now, it's interesting in the last verse how it says that when he went out, it was night. Now, not only was it literally night, but there's also a spiritual parallel here. Judas went out from the fellowship of Jesus and exchanged light for darkness. The next time that we see Judas is when he betrays Jesus over to the religious leaders. Now, immediately after Judas leaves, Jesus gives a new commandment to his disciples. Now, the reason he refers to this commandment as new is because it presents a new standard, which is the love of Jesus himself. So look at what it says in verses 34 through 35. Jesus talking, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this all will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." That is the true test of discipleship. Do you love other people? Doesn't matter how much of the Bible you can quote, if you preach on stage or you pray a lot. No, it all comes down to, do you love others? Love was the highest priority that Jesus wanted his disciples to understand, and it's so important that we hold it in that same regard. All right, one last thing to look at here is Jesus predicting Peter's denial. Now, this had to be hard for Peter to hear, but look at verses 37 through 38. Peter said to him, "Lord, why can I not follow you now? I will lay down my life for your sake." Jesus answered him, "Will you lay down your life for my sake? Most assuredly I say to you, the rooster shall not crow till you have denied me 3 times. I've often wondered why Jesus did that to Peter. I mean, there's been times I've read that and I've been like, Is that really necessary, Jesus? I mean, the man's already going to deny you. Do you have to rub his face in it before it happens? See, but here's the thing. Jesus knows that Peter is about to go through one of the darkest moments of his life when he denies him and then runs away while Jesus is being murdered. Peter is about to go through an emotional train wreck after this, but Jesus wants Peter to know that even though he already knows he's going to do it, he still loves him. Jesus isn't mad at Peter. He's not upset. Even though he knows what he's going to do, he's still standing there loving Peter. You know, I believe that this act is one of the things that ultimately helped Peter get through this period. Jesus already knew what he was going to go through, and he loved Peter so much that he was preparing him for it before it even happened. All right, guys, well, that is it for us today with chapter 13. I told you there was a lot to go over today. Well, thank you as always for being here. Come back tomorrow for chapter 14. Until then, you all be good. Hope you have a beautiful day wherever you're watching this from. I'll see you back here tomorrow.